Somewhere in your yard, probably a shady corner you ignore, there's room to grow gourmet mushrooms that sell for $15 a pound at the store. And you'd plant them one time. That's it. No seeds next spring, no starting over, no bare dirt staring back at you in April. Just food showing up on its own, fall after fall, while the rest of the garden is frozen dead. So the question you came here with, can you plant a mushroom once and keep harvesting for years with no replanting? Yes, not sort of, not with a lab or a degree, in a pile of wood chips most people rake straight to the curb. Picture two gardens. The first is the one most of us grew up with. You till, plant, water, weed, fight the slugs, harvest for maybe 6 good weeks, and then winter wipes it clean. Come March, you buy seeds and do it all again. It's a treadmill, a tasty treadmill, but you never get ahead. The second barely looks like gardening. A path made of wood chips, a couple of logs leaning on a north-facing fence, a damp corner nobody else wanted, and underneath all of it, quietly, a living network doing the work while you sleep. You didn't plant it this year, you planted it 2 years ago, and it has been spreading ever since. By the end of this, you'll know exactly which mushroom goes in which corner, what to feed it, and when to expect dinner. Here's the scale, so it's worth the afternoon. A handful of logs plus one mulch bed can keep a household in fresh mushrooms most of the year for the price of a bag of spawn. Compare that to the seed bill every spring. Why fungi don't quit when your vegetables do. That network has a name. It's mycelium, and it changes how you garden. Here's the difference that matters. A tomato is an annual. It sprints, fruits, and dies, and its roots pull nutrients out of the soil the whole time. A mushroom is the opposite kind of creature. It's a decomposer, a saprophyte, which means it doesn't feed on your soil, it feeds on dead wood and builds soil as it goes. The mushroom you eat is only the fruit. The real organism is a web of thread-thin filaments woven through the wood below, and that web doesn't care about your calendar. Give it food, moisture, and shade, and it keeps living and spreading for years. Now the part that pays off in the garden. Most of these 7 are what mycologists call white rot fungi. They release enzymes that break down lignin, the tough glue holding wood together, turning hard chips into dark, crumbly humus. That humus holds water, feeds earthworms, and improves the structure of the dirt around it. You're growing dinner and building topsoil in the same move. A distinction worth having. These 7 are decomposers, not partners. They're not the mycorrhizal fungi that fuse to plant roots and trade nutrients. Your wine caps and oysters simply eat wood and leave richer ground behind. Feed them the wood they like, and they do the rest. One honest limit, because I can't stand hype. Infinite harvest comes with an asterisk. Fungi eat wood, and wood runs out. Infinite really means renewable. Feed the network fresh material, keep it damp and shaded, and it runs as long as you feed it. Stop, and it stops. Fair deal. So let's build it. 7 fungi, each claiming a different corner. Wine cap, the wood chip path that feeds you. We start on the ground with the friendliest mushroom you'll ever meet, the wine cap, also called the garden giant, or if you want to sound fancy at a dinner party, Stropharia rugoso-annulata. Nobody says that one out loud. This is your foundation species, and it's forgiving. It grows in a simple bed of hardwood wood chips or straw, ideally with a little shade, so the north side of a building, the drip line under a shrub, or the mulch path you already walk on all work. Lay the chips 4 to 6 inches deep, mix in the spawn, and keep it moist. One 5-pound bag covers roughly 25 square feet. Soft maple, poplar, and box elder are ideal, and it tolerates a little softwood. It won't grow on logs, only in beds and mulch. It likes a mix of particle sizes, so sawdust plus chips beats chips alone, and a sheet of soaked cardboard underneath smothers weeds while it colonizes. It can fruit in as little as 2 months, with a light spring flush and a bigger one in fall. Here's the detail that got me obsessed. The beds filter water. Researchers have found the mycelium pulls phosphorus and even coliform bacteria out of runoff rolling through it. So the bed cleans your yard and hands you dinner as a thank you. Try getting that out of a zucchini. One gift the others don't share. Wine cap is hard to confuse with anything dangerous, which makes it a perfect first mushroom. But burn this in for every species after. Only eat a mushroom you grew on purpose or can identify with total confidence. Wild lookalikes are real, and some will land you in a hospital. When in doubt, throw it out. Shiitake, 1 log, 5 years of dinners. Now go vertical. Your ground beds are only half the story. Shiitake is the classic log mushroom grown for over 1,000 years back to Song Dynasty China. You want freshly cut hardwood logs because live wood still holds its moisture and no rival fungi have moved in yet. Oak is a top pick. Sugar maple is fantastic. Aim for logs 4 to 6 inches thick and 3 or 4 feet long. Cut in winter when the tree has pulled its sugars down into the trunk, then rest it a couple of weeks. Dead logs off your woodpile won't work. Other fungi already claimed them. The process is oddly satisfying. Drill holes in a diamond pattern, roughly 4 to 6 inches apart, and an inch deep using a 5/16 bit for plug spawn or a 1/2 inch bit for sawdust. Tap the spawn in, then seal each hole with melted wax so it can't dry out or get invaded. Keep the bark intact because that bark is the log's skin and its moisture barrier. Stack the finished logs in a shady, breezy spot off the bare ground and label each with the strain and date. Then wait, because colonization runs from 6 months to over a year before the first flush, and patience is most of the skill. Here's the number that reframes everything. A log produces roughly 1 year of mushrooms per inch of diameter, so a 5-inch oak log can crop for about 5 years. Inoculate once, harvest for half a decade. And you can time it. Soak a colonized log overnight in cold water, and it'll flush a few days later right on cue. Pick a cold weather and a warm weather strain, and you stretch the harvest even wider. Lion's mane, the shaggy one that tastes like lobster. While those shiitake logs are cooking, inoculate a couple more, because 2 of the best gourmet mushrooms on earth grow the same way with no extra work. Lion's mane is the shaggy white one that looks like a frozen waterfall. Cook it in butter, and the texture is uncanny. People swear it tastes like crab or lobster. It's pickier than shiitake and really prefers sugar maple or beech, so match the wood or you'll wait a long time for nothing. Here's where it does something different. Instead of the drill and fill routine, growers use the totem method. You cut a log into short sections, stack them back up with a layer of sawdust spawn between each one, like a spore sandwich, then slip the whole tower into a loose bag while it colonizes. It's less fiddly than drilling 80 holes, and Hericium seems to prefer it. It fruits from early summer into fall, and you harvest when the little icicle spines reach about a 1/4 inch, twisting the whole cluster off clean while it's snowy white. Let it yellow and the flavor turns bitter. The one thing it won't forgive is drought, so sprinkle the tower yourself in a dry stretch if you get under an inch of rain a week. And yes, lion's mane is being studied for effects on the brain and nerves, which is interesting, but I won't promise you anything, and neither should anyone selling it to you. Grow it because it's delicious and strange, and treat the research as a bonus. If you cook only 1 mushroom off this list, make it this one. Seared hard in a dry pan first, then finished in butter until the edges go gold. The oyster is your fast, foolproof first win. If you want a fast win, the oyster is your mushroom. Oysters are ravenous. They'll colonize a huge range of soft hardwoods like poplar, cottonwood, box elder, and tulip poplar, and they fruit quickly, usually with the temperature swings of spring and fall. The same totem trick works great, and 1 5-pound bag of spawn will run 3 or 4 good-sized stacks. This is the one that makes you feel like a genius your first year, partly because they'll grow on almost anything woody, from straw to coffee grounds. Different strains also cover different weather. Blue and gray oysters love the cool of spring and fall, while pink and gold ones want summer heat, so together they cover much of the year. Now, the fact that stops people mid-bite. Oyster mushrooms are carnivorous. Because they live on dead wood, which is rich in carbon but starved of nitrogen, they hunt to make up the difference. When a tiny roundworm called a nematode brushes against the mycelium, the fungus hits it with a chemical that paralyzes it within a minute, then grows into the body and digests it from the inside. That's not folklore, it's documented in journals like PNAS. So an oyster patch quietly does pest control on the soil around it, a strange bonus for something you're also going to eat. Two practical notes. Oysters can't be force-fruited with a cold soak the way shiitake can, so the stacked totem, which fruits more readily on its own, is the smart play. And they're prolific to the point of comedy, so plan to give some away. Harvest the whole cluster young before the caps flatten and turn papery, then cook them hot and fast so they crisp instead of steam. Nameko, the mushroom that waits for the cold. Just when the garden thinks the season is over, this one shows up. Nameko is a small amber Japanese mushroom with glossy, slightly slippery cap, and it's the soul of a proper miso soup. What I love is the timing. Nameko is cold-triggered. It waits until the temperature drops, often the first time your days hover around 50 degrees, and then it fruits when almost nothing else will. A gentle 5 to 10 degree slide over a few days is the signal. A hard freeze can stress it, so it rewards a slow autumn. You grow it on hardwood logs the same way as shiitake, with beech, oak, and alder as favorites, and it keeps producing for several years, usually a flush or two in fall a few weeks apart. Here's a quirk worth knowing. Nameko is one of the few gourmet mushrooms that tolerates some softwood, so it will even take to jack pine or Virginia pine, which almost nothing else on this list will touch. That slippery coating isn't a flaw, by the way. It's the identification feature, and it's what gives miso soup its silky body. One underrated perk, Nameko keeps in the fridge far longer than most gourmet mushrooms, so a fall glut is easy to store. Pick the clusters young while the caps are still glossy and rounded, and raise your logs an inch or two off the ground so the mushrooms don't push into the leaf litter and rot. Twist each cluster off at the base and get them into the pot. So picture the yard. Wine caps in the mulch, 3 gourmets on logs by the fence, Nameko waiting on the cold, food in nearly every season, planted mostly once. Turkey tail, for the teapot, not the pan. The last two are a different animal, and I'll be straight with you. You don't eat these, you brew them. Turkey tail is that fan-shaped fungus with the banded rings you've seen on old stumps in the woods. It grows readily on hardwood logs and stumps, and it's a white rot decomposer, so it happily takes an old maple or oak stump you can't dig out and turns it into soil while making tea along the way. It's tough and leathery, closer to a strip of hide than a portobello, which is why it goes into a pot of simmering water for a couple of hours rather than a frying pan. It's also one of the most common wood rotters out there, fruiting almost year-round in mild climates, so one stump keeps giving for years. Now the identification bit, because this one has famous lookalikes. Flip it over. True turkey tail is a polypore, so its underside is a fine white layer of tiny pores, 3 to 8 per millimeter, so small you have to squint. The imposter, false turkey tail, is a crust fungus with a smooth, blank underside and no pores at all. The good news is the fakes won't hurt you, they just do nothing, so you'd be brewing flavorless disappointment. White, visible pores, and you're good. On the health talk, I'll stay careful. Turkey tail has a long history in traditional Asian medicine, and a purified compound from it has been used in Japan alongside conventional cancer care for decades. That part is real. It's also not a green light for me to make health claims, so I won't. Grow it because it's beautiful, it's easy, and it turns a dead stump into something useful. Reishi, the varnished one that loves the heat. Reishi is the showstopper, the glossy, reddish, almost lacquered one that looks like it was dipped in varnish. Unlike everything else here, it likes it warm, so it fruits through the heat of summer while the rest of your patch is sulking. It's a saprophyte on hardwoods, oak and maple especially, and outdoors you often half-bury a colonized log or stump in a shady, humid spot and let it push its shelves up from there. Here's the strangest and most useful fact about reishi. Its shape is controlled by the air. Reishi breathes out carbon dioxide, and when it's smothered in its own CO2 with poor airflow, it can't form a proper cap, so it grows tall, branching, antler-like fingers as it reaches for oxygen. Give it fresh, open air, and it lays down the classic, flat, kidney-shaped conch instead. Grown out in the yard with plenty of breeze, you'll almost always get those handsome varnished shelves. It's one of the few mushrooms whose final form you can sculpt with ventilation. Be patient because reishi builds its lacquered layers slowly over 2 to 4 months, and time the harvest because at full maturity it drops a fine rust-colored spore dust that coats everything nearby, so cut the conch just as its bright growing edge fills in. Like turkey tail, it's far too woody to chew, so it goes into tea or a slow tincture, carrying the same traditional history and the same caution from me, no promises. One tip that saves your knife: slice the fresh conch before you dry it, because once reishi hardens, it's like cutting a hockey puck. It's slow, it's beautiful, and it turns a rotting log into something that lasts for years. How one bed quietly becomes 10. This next move is what turns a hobby into a legacy, and it's why you never buy spawn twice. Once your wine cap bed is thriving, you make it a mother bed. Dig out a shovelful of the colonized, mycelium-laced wood chips and mix it into a fresh pile of chips somewhere new. That living material is your spawn now. One bed becomes 2, 2 becomes 5, all for the price of moving mulch and one weekend. Logs work the same way in spirit. Keep a rotation going, inoculating 2 or 3 fresh ones each spring, so as old logs fade after their run, new ones are already coming online. Learn to read a healthy bed, too. You'll see white, cottony threads webbing through the chips, sometimes thick cords called rhizomorphs, and you'll notice the fruiting creeping a little farther from where you started each year. That rich forest floor smell after rain means it's working. The beginner mistakes are almost always the same 3: letting the bed dry out, using treated or fully rotted wood, and quitting too early, because that first year is almost entirely invisible work happening underground. So one ask before you go: not this whole list, just one thing. Start a single wine cap bed or inoculate 1 log this week, because next year, before you've planted a seed or spent $1, you'll walk outside and find food already growing from work you did once. That's the whole dream. And do me one small favor. If this video was useful to you, comment the word "yes" below. That one word tells us you want more of this, and it keeps us motivated to make videos like this one. Now go start that bed.